"I want to draw you," Malik said simply, already turning to a blank page. "You've got one of those faces that makes people curious. It will be a crime not to draw it." Naomi laughed nervously. "No, I look too tired for that." But Malik shook his head. "You look real. That's what makes it worth it. This is a story about two souls who found light in each other's shadows. It's a story that most of you will relate to because it's about love that arrived when life was falling apart and hope that bloomed in the most unexpected places. It's about a girl who lost everything but found herself in the warmth of someone's eyes, and a boy who had everything but felt empty until she walked into his life. So grab a cup of coffee, find a quiet corner, and let your heart settle in. Because what you're about to read isn't just a story. It's a journey of love, loss, and the beautiful chaos that comes with chasing dreams and finding yourself along the way. The sun hovered lazily over the University of Lagos campus, washing the concrete walls in gold. Students hurried between lectures, laughing and chattering, carrying the familiar energy of youth and hope. Among them was Naomi, a petite girl with round cheeks, bright eyes, and an aura that glowed with quiet determination. She had always believed her scholarship was her ticket out of poverty. Her widowed mother sold vegetables in Ajegunle, struggling to keep the home together. She often promised, "Mommy, I'll make you proud. I'll change our story." That dream shattered one fateful Monday morning. "Naomi, you might want to check the notice board," said Ngozi, her roommate, fidgeting as she packed her bag. When Naomi reached the departmental notice board, her heart froze. The scholarship list was pinned up. Her name was gone. She blinked hard, scanned again. No mistake. Her name had been replaced by another, Sandra Okeke, her closest friend. Her breath caught in her throat. Sandra. But Sandra hadn't even applied for this particular scholarship. Or had she? Confused, she kept reading, hoping it was an error. Students crowded around her, whispering and congratulating the new recipient. Sandra's name shone clearly in bold letters. Her chest tightened. It had to be a mistake. She rushed to the departmental office, clutching her folder. "Excuse me, ma," she said breathlessly to the secretary. "I was on the scholarship list last semester, but now my name is missing. There must be some mix-up." The secretary gave her a tired look. "Your file says your documents were incomplete, Miss Okoro. The dean approved Miss Okeke instead. Everything is fine now." Naomi frowned. "Incomplete? That's impossible. I submitted everything. The transcript, recommendation, essay. Then you should have followed up sooner," the secretary interrupted, shrugging. "Once the list is published, there's nothing anyone can do." Feeling the ground slip beneath her feet, she stumbled out of the office. She replayed everything in her mind. She remembered the week before when she had begged Sandra to help her submit her scholarship renewal forms because she had a clashing practical class. Sandra had smiled warmly and said, "Don't worry, girl. I've got you. I'll drop it at the dean's office myself." A lump rose in her throat. Could it be that Sandra had forgotten to submit them? Or maybe the papers got lost? She wanted to ask, but a part of her was scared to hear the answer. That evening, Sandra came into the hostel room, humming, a plastic bag of snacks in her hand. "Hey girl, you look like you've seen a ghost," she said, dropping the bag on her bed. Naomi looked up slowly. "Sandra, did you hear about the scholarship list?" Sandra froze for just a second, so brief that Naomi barely noticed. Then she forced a puzzled smile. "No, what happened?" "My name was removed. They said my documents were incomplete." "Eh? How? But you worked so hard and you had all your papers ready." "I know. I just don't understand. Maybe something got misplaced. I'm thinking of going to see the dean myself." Sandra hesitated, her smile faltering slightly. You know how these things are. Once the list is out, they rarely change it. Maybe just focus on next semester. Don't stress yourself too much, okay?" Naomi nodded numbly. "Yeah, maybe you're right." That night she lay in bed wide awake. Her mind refused to rest. She thought of her mother, the sacrifices, the late nights studying by candlelight. Now everything seemed to be slipping away because of an error she couldn't even explain. The next morning, she saw Sandra surrounded by friends in the cafeteria. They were congratulating her on her good luck and how her uncle's connection must have helped her get the scholarship. Naomi stopped in her tracks. Wait, uncle's connection? A bitter taste filled her mouth. She wanted to believe that it was a coincidence, that Sandra's new scholarship had nothing to do with hers. After all, Sandra had been her closest friend, her confidant. She wouldn't hurt her. But as Sandra laughed softly, brushing off the compliment, something in her tone, something rehearsed, made Naomi's stomach twist. Still, She forced a smile when their eyes met. "Congrats, Sandra," she said quietly. Sandra smiled back, eyes glistening. "Thanks, girl. You'll get yours next time." That night, Naomi cried into her pillow, the weight of disappointment pressing down on her chest. She didn't know what went wrong or who to blame, but she knew one thing. Life had just taught her a painful lesson. Even when you do everything right, the world can still turn its back on you. And yet, beneath the sorrow, something fierce began to stir. She whispered to herself, "I won't give up. I'll find another way. I have to." It was the quiet birth of resilience, born from betrayal she hadn't yet discovered. Weeks later, Naomi was no longer attending lectures in her bright Ankara gowns. Her face looked thinner, her eyes more tired. Without the scholarship, she couldn't afford rent or regular meals. She started working part-time with Mama Chika's Kitchen, a small campus catering business that sold rice, beans, and stew to hungry students. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to survive. Every afternoon, she carried trays of jollof rice and fried plantain across campus. Some students ignored her, others pitied her, but she smiled through the humiliation, whispering to herself, "One day, all this will make sense." One afternoon, an order came from room 203, King Jaja Hall, a double portion of fried rice and grilled chicken, paid in advance. When she knocked, the door swung open to reveal Malik, tall, brown-skinned, with shoulder-length dreadlocks and a gold chain glinting under his open shirt. He had the careless charm of someone who never had to try too hard. His room smelled faintly of cologne and music. A speaker hummed low Afro beats in the background. He leaned casually against the door frame, his eyes scanning her face with quiet curiosity. "You're the catering girl?" he asked, tone half amused, half teasing. "Yes," she said softly, holding out the food, fried rice and grilled chicken. He took the plate, but his gaze lingered. "You look too smart to be delivering food." She managed a faint smile. "And you look too rich to be in a hostel." He laughed, a deep, unexpected sound that made her stomach flutter. "Touché. Thank you for your order," she said quickly, ready to turn and leave. "Wait," Malik said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a folded note. "Keep the change." She hesitated. "It's already paid for." He shrugged. "Then call it appreciation for good service." "Thank you," she murmured, lowering her gaze before walking away. As she made her way down the narrow hallway, she could still feel his eyes on her back, and for reasons she couldn't explain, her heart raced faster than usual. Inside the room, Malik placed his food on the desk. His friend, Tunde, who had been lounging on the bed scrolling through his phone, looked up with a mischievous grin. "Guy, now that catering girl we just leave so?" Malik nodded absently, uncovering the tray. "Yeah, Mama Chika's people." "Why?" Tunde chuckled. "You didn't see the way she looked at you? That one get potential, oh. Maybe she's the one that'll finally turn you into a lover boy." Malik shot him a glare, rolling his eyes. "Abeg, shift that talk. I ordered food, not feelings." Tunde laughed harder. "You got a form hard guy, but I see the way you were staring at her like she carried the last plate of fried rice on earth." Malik smirked, shaking his head. "She just looks different. Most girls on campus are loud or fake. This one looks real, but that's all." "Different?" Tunde echoed, grinning knowingly. "That's how it starts. First is different, then next thing you know, you are writing poems and changing your WhatsApp bio to heartbreak quotes." Malik threw a napkin at him, chuckling. "You're mad." Tunde dodged it easily. "Oh yeah, deny it. You no feel small spark?" Malik sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I don't do sparks, bro. I do peace. And peace doesn't come with drama." "Keep talking," Tunde said, lying back with his smirk. "But mark my word, that catering girl will go collect your heart one day." Malik ignored him, focusing on his food, but his mind betrayed him. He kept seeing the girl's face, the way she smiled shyly, her voice gentle but firm. There was something about her that tugged at his curiosity, though he would never admit it aloud. Meanwhile, as Naomi walked back to Mama Chika's stall, she couldn't shake off the memory of Malik's laughter. It had been rich and effortless, like something pulled straight from a movie. His room, neat but stylish, and the scent of his cologne lingered faintly in her mind. She scolded herself silently. "Focus, Naomi. You are here to work, not to crush on some boy with dreadlocks and gold chains." But that thought made her smile, in spite of herself. There had been something magnetic about him, not just his looks, but his confidence,
the ease with which he carried himself, as if nothing in the world could touch him. That night, as she lay on her thin mattress, she found herself replaying their brief exchange. The way he had smiled, the teasing tone in his voice, it felt like a spark she hadn't felt in months, a reminder that even in hardship, life still had room for something soft, something human. And unbeknownst to her, in room 203, Malik sat staring absently at his now empty plate, wondering why for the first time in a long while, the taste of fried rice reminded him of something more than just food. It reminded him of a girl who refused to break, no matter how much life tried to bend her. At first, Naomi thought nothing of it. Maybe he was just friendly. Maybe he pitied her. But Malik was different. He never asked personal questions, yet somehow their short conversations stretched into minutes about Lagos traffic, campus politics, and random songs blasting from the hostels. "Why do you always order the same thing?" she asked one day. He grinned. "Because it's the only thing that tastes like peace." That made her laugh for the first time in weeks. But there was something else about him, an invisible sadness that hovered behind his confidence. She noticed the unopened textbooks, the late nights, the empty bottles on his desk. Rumors around campus said Malik's father was a politician, his mother a business mogul. He had everything money could buy, except happiness. One evening, she arrived late and found him sitting on the balcony, sketching in a notebook. The sunset cast warm gold across his face as he drew with quiet focus, his dreadlocks falling gently over his forehead. "You draw?" she asked, setting the food tray on the small table. "Sometimes," he said, without looking up. Then he turned the sketch pad towards her, a rough pencil drawing of the lagoon at sunset, the ripples of water shaded delicately, the horizon soft and fading.
"Is how I escape," he added, his voice low. She smiled softly. "It's beautiful. You have talent." He shrugged. "My dad thinks it's a waste of time. He wants me to join his company. I hate that life." In that moment, she saw not a rebel, but a boy searching for peace. She hesitated, then said quietly, "Maybe he just doesn't understand what art does for you." Malik glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "You talk like someone who gets it." "Maybe I do," she said, meeting his gaze. There was a pause, a gentle, charged silence filled only by the distant sounds of campus life, laughter, car horns, music from a nearby room. Then Malik said, "Sit for me." She blinked. "Sit? What do you mean?" "I want to draw you," he said simply, already turning to a blank page. "You've got one of those faces that makes people curious. It would be a crime not to draw it." She laughed nervously. No, I look too tired for that." But he shook his head. "You look real. That's what makes it worth it." His voice carried such quiet conviction that she found herself obeying, sitting on the balcony chair opposite him. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. Malik's eyes flicked between her face and his sketch pad, his pencil gliding with steady precision. The air between them felt thick, alive with something unnamed. Every so often, he would look up, not in a lingering, flirtatious way, but with the concentration of someone studying light, texture, emotion. She tried not to move, but her heart thudded faster each time their eyes met. Finally, he exhaled softly. "Done." "Already?" she asked, rising to her feet. He turned the sketchpad around, and her breath caught. It was her, but not just her face. It was her expression, a blend of exhaustion and hope, of quiet strength and fragility. He had captured the part of her even she had forgotten existed. It's beautiful," she whispered, eyes glistening. "I don't even look like this." "You do," he said gently. "You just don't see it." Their gazes held, lingering in the silence that followed. Then he tore the page carefully from the pad. "Here," he said, handing it to her. When she reached for it, their fingers brushed, a brief electric contact that sent a jolt through both of them. The world seemed to slow, even the hum of the evening cicadas faded. Malik's breath hitched slightly. She looked up, and their faces were suddenly close, too close. Her lips parted, her eyes searching his. Slowly, almost unconsciously, they both leaned in. The air between them trembled. Their mouths were inches apart. She could feel his breath, warm against her skin, when Malik suddenly froze. His eyes softened with conflict, and he pulled back, running a hand over his face. "I shouldn't," he muttered, almost to himself. "You should go." The words landed gently, but they stung all the same. Flustered, Naomi stepped back, clutching the drawing to her chest. Thank you for this," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded without meeting her eyes. "Take care, Naomi." She turned and left quickly, her heart pounding. But as she walked down the hallway, she couldn't stop touching the edge of the paper in her hands, couldn't stop replaying that moment when the world had held its breath for them. Later that night, lying on her narrow bed, she unfolded the drawing again under the dim bulb. The pencil lines seemed to glow. His eyes, his laughter, the near kiss, they all swirled through her mind like a soft, forbidden melody. And though she told herself it was foolish, that nothing could ever come of it, Naomi couldn't help but smile, because for the first time in a long while, someone had made her feel seen. Days turned into weeks, and their connection deepened. Malik began visiting Mama Chika's store, pretending to inspect the rice. He teased her constantly. "Miss Catering Queen, when are you going to cook for me alone?" "When you pay double," she had replied, rolling her eyes. They became inseparable. He would help her carry trays, walk her home, and buy snacks for her and Ogozi. Soon, gossip spread that the campus bad boy had fallen for the catering girl. But Naomi didn't care. Malik made her laugh again. He made her feel seen. One evening, under the fading Lagos sky, they sat by the lagoon behind the Faculty of Arts. "I wish I could paint this moment," he said quietly. "Then paint it in your heart," she replied. "Some moments aren't meant for canvas." He looked at her then, really looked, and said, "You are not like anyone I've met before." And before she could reply, he kissed her gently, soft, hesitant, and real. After that night, everything changed. Malik began planning little surprises for her. Breakfast boxes waiting at the stall, handwritten sketches tucked into her delivery trays. One Saturday, he called her unexpectedly. "Get dressed," he said, with a grin he could hear through the phone. "Out where?" she asked suspiciously but smiling. "You'll see. No aprons allowed today." 2 hours later, she found herself sitting beside him in his car as they drove towards Takwaba Beach. The salty breeze rolled in through the windows, whipping her hair playfully across her face. Malik glanced at her and chuckled. "What?" she asked, trying to hold her hair down. "Nothing," he said. "Just, you look happy. You should smile like this more often." She blushed and turned toward the ocean view ahead. "Maybe I just needed some air." At the beach, the world seemed to slow. The waves kissed the shore with gentle persistence. Children ran laughing across the sand, and vendors called out for customers buying coconuts and suya. Malik laid out a small mat under a palm tree and handed her a drink. "To escaping life's madness," he said, raising his bottle. "To peace," she replied, clinching hers against his. They spent the afternoon walking barefoot along the waterline, talking about everything, from childhood dreams to their favorite songs. Malik told her about sketching as a boy when his parents fought, how art had been his way of finding quiet.
"You are not what people say you are," Naomi said softly. He smiled faintly. "And what do they say? That you're reckless, arrogant, a spoilt rich boy. And what do you think?" She paused, watching the light dance on the waves. "I think you're just searching." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. The sun dipped lower, painting the horizon orange and gold. Everything felt still, peaceful, until a scream shattered the calm. "Help! Somebody help! He is drowning!" They turned to see chaos near the water. A teenage boy had wandered too far out, the tide dragging him under, as his friends panicked at the shore. Before Naomi could even process it, Malik was already sprinting toward the waves. "Malik!" she screamed, dropping her drink and chasing after him. But he was gone, diving into the turbulent water without hesitation. The crowd gathered anxiously, shouting, praying. Moments felt like hours until Malik finally surfaced, dragging the unconscious boy toward the shore. With the help of 2 men, he pulled the boy onto the sand and began chest compressions. "Come on, breathe," Malik muttered, his voice trembling with urgency. Water spilled from the boy's mouth as he coughed weakly, gasping for air. The crowd erupted in relief, some clapping, others crying. Malik collapsed back, drenched and shaking, his chest heaving. Naomi ran to him, her heart pounding. "Malik, are you okay?" He nodded, still catching his breath. "Yeah, he's fine." She knelt beside him, touching his arm gently. "You saved his life." He gave a weak laugh. "Guess all those swimming lessons my dad forced on me finally paid off." But his hands trembled, and she could see the emotion flicker behind his eyes. The same eyes that once hid behind arrogance, now revealing something raw, selfless, and deeply human. "You're amazing," she whispered, tears threatening to fall. He looked at her then, truly looked, his wet hair clinging to his forehead. "You shouldn't say that," he murmured. "I'm not." "Yes, you are," she insisted. "You could have died." He smiled faintly, his voice soft. Some things are worth the risk. They sat in silence for a long while as the sunset bled across the horizon, the sound of waves mixing with distant cheers. Naomi felt something shift inside her, a deeper tenderness, in knowing that this man was far more than his reputation. Later, as they drove back through the quiet city, she glanced at him, his damp shirt, the salt still in his hair, and felt her heart ache in the sweetest way. That night, lying in bed, she replayed the scene over and over. His fearless dive, the look in his eyes, the way his voice trembled when the boy breathed again. And as she drifted to sleep, one truth settled deep within her. She was falling from Malik. Not just the artist or the charmer, but the man with a brave heart and a soul that ran deeper than the sea itself. Malik had always been the kind of man who lived in the moment, reckless, spontaneous, never thinking too far ahead. But loving Naomi changed that. She brought structure to his chaos, light to the shadows he hid behind. Her presence made him want to be better, not because she demanded it, but because she believed he could be. He saw how hard she worked, juggling school, catering, and survivor, yet never once complained. When she smiled, it was like the world softened for a second, and he often caught himself wondering how someone who had so little could still carry so much grace. One afternoon, while she was helping Mama Chika pack trays after a long day, Malik stopped by with his sketchbook in hand. He sat quietly at the far end of the store, pretending to doodle, but his mind wasn't on art. He was watching Naomi, how she wiped sweat from her brow with the back of her hand, how she laughed at something Ngozi said, how she handed a bowl of rice to a customer with that calm gentleness that had first caught his eye. That night, after he dropped her off at her hostel gate, he went home and couldn't sleep. He opened his laptop and searched for something, anything that could help her reach her dreams. That was when he stumbled upon an international scholarship program in South Africa for students studying nutrition and food science. It felt like fate. He read every line of the eligibility requirements and his heartbeat quickened as he realized she qualified. He downloaded the form and printed it immediately, the paper still warm when he pulled it from the printer. For the next few days, he quietly gathered everything he needed: her student ID number, which he memorized after helping her fill a pass form, her department, her CGPA. He had overheard her mention it once to a classmate. Then, for the personal statement, he sat on his balcony for hours, thinking of how to capture her essence. Then he began to type, using her voice in his head. I grew up believing that one meal could change a person's life. I have seen children in my neighborhood go to bed hungry, and I want to be part of a future where food is not a privilege, but a right. When he finished, he sat back and exhaled deeply. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't thinking about himself. This was about her, the girl who had unknowingly drawn him out of the darkness. 2 days later, he went to the campus library to scan and submit the form. When the portal asked for payment, he didn't hesitate. He reached into his wallet, pulled out his ATM card, and paid the application fee without a second thought. The confirmation message appeared on his screen, and he smiled. Later that evening, he printed an extra copy of the form and slipped it into a plain white envelope. The next morning when he met her at Mama Chika's stall, she was busy wiping tables, not noticing how fidgety he was. Naomi, he said, casually, sliding the envelope into her backpack while she wasn't looking. Don't forget to rest today. You've been working too hard. She will, she said, with a tired smile. Thanks for checking in.
That evening, when she got home and found the envelope, she thought someone had made a mistake. She pulled out the neatly filled form and froze when she saw her name at the top, her handwriting nowhere in sight. Her eyes widened as she flipped through the pages, realizing everything had already been written, signed, and paid for. The next day, she confronted him after class, holding the form with both hands. Malik, what is this? She asked, her voice trembling between disbelief and gratitude. He leaned back on the campus bench, feigning innocence. A form, he said, smiling faintly. She stepped closer. You filled this for me? Why? He looked at her for a long moment before replying softly. Because you talk about your dreams like they are stories you'll never get to live. I just wanted to prove that maybe you can. Her lips parted, but no words came. Tears welled in her eyes as the weight of his gesture hit her. I can't afford the application fee, she whispered, as though trying to find a reason to deserve it less. I've got that covered, he said simply. Don't worry about the rest. Just dream big again, Naomi. Please. She stood there silent for a long moment, then slowly reached out and hugged him. He stiffened at first, caught off guard. then wrapped his arms around her. "I don't know what to say," she murmured against his chest. "Then don't," he said with a small laugh. "Just promise me you'll believe you deserve more than this place." In that moment, Naomi knew she wasn't just grateful. She was in love. And for Malik, watching her hold that form like it was a treasure, he realized that for the first time in his life, he wanted someone else's dream to come true more than his own. Malik's world had always been gilded. Marble floors, expensive cars, and a last name that opened doors. But behind that glitter was a home built on silence and disappointment. His parents' marriage had fallen apart years ago, and he had been left floating between two worlds, a father obsessed with reputation and a mother who loved from a distance, buried in her own regrets. Most people envied Malik. Naomi saw through him. She saw the boy who flinched whenever his phone rang, the man who laughed loudly but never freely, the son who carried the invisible scars of never being enough. That night when he came to her hostel, she knew something inside him had cracked. The knock on her door came sharp and urgent. When she opened it, Malik stood there, shoulders trembling, his jaw tight. "Malik, what happened?" He didn't speak first. He just walked in and sat on her bed, his fists clenched. "They think money replaces love," he finally said, his voice bitter. "My father called to remind me how useless I am. He said I'm wasting my life drawing stupid pictures and running after a catering girl." The words cut deep, not because they hurt her, but because of how broken he sounded. Naomi knelt in front of him, placing her hands gently on his knees. "Then stop trying to be what they want. Be who you are. The boy who saved a stranger's life. The boy who draws because he gives him peace. The boy I know has a good heart." He looked down at her, and the anger in his eyes softened into exhaustion. "You make it sound easy," he whispered. "It's not," she said softly, "but healing never is." That night, Malik fell asleep sitting up, his head resting against the wall. Naomi stayed beside him, reading quietly until dawn. When he woke, sunlight had filled the room, and something in him had shifted. For the first time in years, he didn't feel angry. He just felt ready. 2 days later, Malik decided to call his mom. The line rang twice before she answered, her voice surprised but warm. "Malik, you called." "Yeah," he said, hesitant. "It's been a while." "It has," she said gently. "How are you?" "I'm fine, trying to figure things out." "Your father says you're still refusing to intern at the company." Malik chuckled dryly. "I'm doing arts, Mom, trying to figure out who I am without his shadow hanging over me." There was silence on the line, then a sigh. "Malik, your father and I made mistakes. We were too caught up in success to see the damage we were doing. I'm sorry, my son." For a long time he said nothing. Then in a small voice he replied, "I just wish you'd have said that sooner." "I know," she said softly, "but maybe it's not too late." When they hung up, Malik felt a peace he hadn't known in years. That evening he found Naomi at Mama Chika's store and told him about the call. "I called my mom today," he said, smiling. "We talked for an hour." "That's amazing," she said, her eyes glowing with pride. "I think I'm healing." "No," she replied with a gentle laugh. "You are healing because you want to. I'm just walking beside you." He smiled. "No, Naomi, you are healing me." But Naomi wasn't done yet. The more she got to know Malik, the more she realized how deeply his father's disapproval still haunted him. One afternoon, while Malik was sketching in her notebook, she quietly copied his father's office address from a folder he had left in her bag by mistake. A week later, she found herself standing in front of the glimmering glass doors of Okonwa and Sons Holdings. Her palms were sweaty, her heart pounding. She had no appointment, just courage and love. When the secretary asked who she was, she said softly, "I'm here to speak with Mr. Okonwo. It's about his son." She waited for nearly an hour before his office door opened. The man himself appeared, tall, commanding, silver streaks in his hair, and eyes that measured everything. "Yes, you wanted to speak to me about Malik?" "Yes, sir." Her voice wavered at first, then steadied. "I see. What has my son done now?" "Nothing, sir," she said quietly. "That's why I'm here." He looked puzzled. "Explain." Naomi took a deep breath. "You think your son is lost because he doesn't follow your path. But have you ever seen how kind he is? How he gives his time to people who have nothing? He saved a teenager from drowning at the beach, sir. He didn't think twice. He just ran in."
Mr. Okonwo frowned, crossing his arms. "That doesn't erase his irresponsibility." "Maybe not," she said softly, "but it shows his heart. You raised a man who cares deeply, even if you don't see it yet. You wanted a perfect son, but you already have a good one. For the first time, the man seemed unsure of what to say. He looked at her, really looked, and something in his eyes shifted. After a long silence, he finally asked, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he still wants your approval," she said, her voice trembling, "even when he pretends not to. And because I see how much he hurts when he talks about you." The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Then he spoke quietly. "You must care about him a lot." "I do," she admitted. "But more than that, I believe in him." He nodded slowly, his expression softening. "Thank you, Miss Naomi. I didn't know." That evening, Malik showed up at her hostel, his face unreadable. "My dad called," he said, his voice low. "He asked to have lunch tomorrow. Said he's proud of me." Naomi's lips parted in surprise. "He did?" Malik nodded, eyes glistening. "He never says things like that." "What did you do?" She smiled faintly. "Nothing much. I just reminded him of the son he raised." Malik stepped closer, cupping her face gently. "You're unbelievable, you know that?" "Maybe," she whispered, smiling up at him. "But you're worth it." That night, under the quiet hum of the Lagos sky, Malik realized something profound. Love wasn't just about kisses or sweet words. Sometimes, it was about someone believing in you enough to fix what life had broken. And Naomi had done just that. She didn't just heal his heart. She helped him rebuild his family, and in doing so, became the home he never knew he was missing. It was a humid Friday afternoon, the kind that made the air thick and sticky even under the shade. Naomi had just finished her last catering delivery for the day. Her legs ached, her apron was stained with palm oil, and a few strands of hair clung stubbornly to her forehead. Mama Chika had asked her to help with inventory in the back of the store, counting sacks of rice and cartons of seasoning cubes. It was the same routine she had done for months. Repetitive, exhausting, but familiar. But that day, Naomi felt strangely lighthearted. Maybe it was the way Malik had smiled at her that morning, or maybe it was the hope she carried secretly in her chest. The hope that the scholarship application Malik had helped her submit months ago might actually yield something. As she wiped her hands on her apron and reached for her phone to check the time, she noticed a new notification, an unread email. She clicked it absent-mindedly at first, expecting another catering order or one of those spam adverts about instant loans. But the moment she saw the subject line, her heart skipped a beat. "Congratulations, Naomi Nusu. You have been accepted for the Nutrition Fellowship at the University of Cape Town." For a second, she froze. She blinked twice, thinking she had misread it. Then she read it again, slowly, carefully, word by word. Her breath caught in her throat. The phone trembled in her hand. "No way," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Oh my God, no way." Her knees buckled, and she sank onto one of the wooden benches behind the store. The world seemed to blur around her. The laughter of students, the sound of frying oil, the chatter of customers, everything faded until all she could see were those words on her screen. Tears filled her eyes, spilling down her cheeks in hot, disbelieving streams. She had done it. After everything, the betrayal, the sleepless nights, the humiliation of serving food to her classmates, she had finally done it. Her first instinct was to tell Malik. Her fingers fumbled as she dialed his number. It rang twice before he picked up. "Hey, Miss Catherine Quinn, you sound out of breath. Did someone chase you?" She laughed through her tears. "Malik, I got it." He paused. "Got what?" "The fellowship," she said, her voice shaking. "The University of Cape Town. I got accepted." There was silence on the line, just the soft sound of his breathing. Then he exhaled sharply, almost like he'd been holding it in for months. "You're serious," he said finally. "Yes," she cried. "I just got the email. Oh my God, Malik, it's real. I'm actually going to South Africa." A loud, joyful laugh burst from the other end of the call, a sound so rare and pure that it made her cry even harder. "Are you kidding me?" Malik shouted. "Naomi, that's incredible. I told you this would happen. I knew it." He could almost see him pacing around his room, running a hand through his dreadlocks, grinning ear to ear. "I'm so proud of you," he said, his voice softer now. "You deserve every bit of this." Her heart swelled. "You helped me get here, Malik. You believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself."
"Nah," he said gently. "You did the work. I just filled the form." She chuckled, wiping her face. "You filled my heart too." "Don't make me emotional, Naomi," he teased, though she could hear the emotion in his voice.
You're going to do great things. I know it." For the rest of that day, Malik couldn't stop smiling. Even Ngozi, who saw him later at the cafeteria, asked what had gotten into him. He simply said, "Someone I love just got her wings." That night, Naomi met him at their usual spot by the lagoon. The water shimmered under the moonlight, gentle waves brushing against the rocks. She showed him the email again, and he read it aloud, his voice full of pride. Then, after a long pause, she said softly, "I can't go." He turned to her, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I can't leave you, Malik," she whispered. "You're my peace." He smiled sadly, brushing a loose curl from her face. "And you're my light, Naomi. But lights don't stay in one place. They shine where they're needed most." Tears filled her eyes again. "What about us?" He hesitated, then said quietly, "If I really love you, I have to let you go." The words broke her, but his tone was steady, gentle, resolute. He reached out, wiping her tears with his thumb. "Promise me one thing," he said. "Don't ever stop chasing your dreams, no matter how far they take you." She nodded through her tears. "I promise." And as the wind from the lagoon brushed against their faces, Naomi realized that love wasn't about holding on tightly. Sometimes it was about having the courage to let go, trusting that the bond between two souls could survive the distance. In that moment, under the moonlight, their love became something bigger than both of them, something pure, brave, and unforgettable. The day she left Lagos, the sky was gray. Malik stood beside her at the park, hands shoved deep into his pockets. The air was heavy, the kind that smelt of rain and endings. "I hate goodbyes," she whispered, her voice trembling. He smiled weakly. "Then let's not say it. Just see you later." She hugged him tightly, her heart pounding against his chest, memorizing his scent, his warmth, the way his dreadlocks brushed against her cheek. When she pulled away, her eyes were glistening. He handed her a small sketchbook, the edges frayed from overuse. "Open it when you get there," he said softly. She nodded, clutching it to her chest like something secret. As the bus began to move, Malik stood on the sidewalk, watching until the vehicle disappeared into the Lagos traffic. His chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out his insides and left him with nothing but memories. When he got home, the quietness hit harder than he expected. He threw his backpack on the couch and sank into a chair, staring blankly at the wall. The loneliness in the room echoed back at him. Then he heard a familiar voice. "Malik." He turned sharply. Standing by the doorway was his mother, elegant, calm, and smiling faintly. She had returned from the US unannounced, suitcase still beside her. "Mom, what are you doing here?" She walked closer, studying his face. "I could ask you the same. You look like someone just stole your sunshine." He tried to laugh, but it came out strained. "Something like that." His mother sat beside him, resting a soft hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to hide it," she said quietly. "I know that look. It's the look of someone who loved deeply." Malik's eyes glistened. "She left today for South Africa." His mother nodded, pulling him into a soft embrace. "Then let her chase her dreams, my son. If it's real, love will find its way back." And as she held him, Malik finally let his tears fall, not just for the girl he loved, but for the beautiful ache she left behind. Months later, in Cape Town, Naomi stood on a podium, receiving an award for her nutrition research. Cameras flashed, applause echoed, but her heart drifted to Lagos. Later that night, she opened her phone. A message blinked from Malik. "Malik, proud of you, my sunshine. Keep shining, always." She smiled through her tears and whispered, "Thank you." Though distance separated them, love had already done its work. It had healed, built, and transformed. In the end, both of them found what they were truly searching for. Not just each other, but themselves. The lesson to be learned in this story is that sometimes the people we meet aren't meant to stay forever. They come to teach us, to heal us, and to remind us that even after heartbreak, love leaves behind light.